Um, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off with a little bit of the backstory, if that's okay with you, just to kind of fill in the spaces of how I got here. And just so you know, this is yesterday. The books finally came. I was sitting on pins and needles, and that didn't feel very good. But the books finally came yesterday. I don't have the hardbacks yet, but the softback books finally came. So whew, I'm really, really relieved. Um, this project, believe it or not, started, I would say, probably back in 1981. And you go, huh? How can that be? Well, I think, and this is all, you know, how life happens and our details get sketchy over time. I think my son Nathan, who is now 43, I think he was in preschool in Carbondale. And I think I was teaching music in the preschool. It was run by someone named Debbie. It was not Debbie Condello. And it was the Rainbow Preschool. And I think I wrote this song for them, but I'm not sure. It's so long ago. I don't know the origins. It's kind of like, you know, digging through the archives. I don't have notes on it, except not the copyright 1981. So that's kind of where that started, with the exception of that, I have also, in the presentations of doing the video and in just reflection and through interviews, there was another piece that surfaced that felt significant that I want to share with you, because this is really about reflecting on my childhood, um, deeply, and how I woke up to my connection with nature. And I would like to invite all of you. I don't know how many of you saw the article that Jessica Peterson did in the Glenwood Post on Friday in the arts and entertainment section, but she did a beautiful interview. And she brought in Scott Fitzwilliams, who's the supervisor for the White River National Forest. And he wrote a lovely testimonial for this book. And he had tapped into a piece that was really important, that is the theme of the book, which is about storytelling and how our stories are important. We may not be our story, but sharing a story is important. It is a way of connecting. It's a way of passing wisdom down from generation to generation. And he did bring up that when he lived in Alaska, the tribal people, that's how they shared their wisdom. It was not written down, it was shared through storytelling. And so there is deep wisdom that is shared through stories. And so that's a piece that I want you to contemplate as well as I share this. When I was very little, probably about 6 years old, I came to Colorado on vacation with my parents. And something happened to me that was magical. And because you're a spiritual center, folks, you will probably get a little bit of this. I was riding a horse in the rain. It was summer, probably cold. I was probably cold and wet. And so something interesting happened as I was riding along on this horse, and I all of a sudden could smell. That's my clock striking. It's running a little slow this morning. My great grandfather clock. Hi, great grandpa. Um, the smell of the wet balsam from the pine trees just did something to my senses. And I just breathed that in, and I just never smelled that before. It was new. And something woke up in me. And then the wet, glistening mica schist on the granite. And I don't know what happened, but it was definitely some kind of a sensory awakening that made me feel like I've got to come back here. And that stayed with me my whole life, so that when I finally reached adulthood, this is where I landed. And I never have grown tired of that experience of being in the mountains and taking in the multisensory input and stimulation. And I feel like that's an awakening for me in itself. So that was definitely in my cell tissue when I was in the process of creating this, although I wasn't really thinking about it at the time. The actual story was beginning to be born in 1991 when I was teaching at Colorado Rocky Mountain School. And the preschool there had received a grant from the Carbondale Arts Council. And so Debbie Condello, who was the director, asked me if I would write an environmental musical event and a curriculum for the preschool. Now, the thing that's interesting about that is we ended up doing that. There's a lovely artist in Glenwood named Mary Noon, who is very well known for her paintings. She created the mountain out of canvas. It was a huge mountain, and the mountain talks. So that was a technological problem. Back in 91, we didn't have a lot of the skill sets that we do now. So there was this wonderful play that was created and filmed by Channel 4, and I actually have it on VCR. A lot of the young people that were in that preschool at the time are now doing amazing things in the world. And some of them were Robin Child, Molly Fales, Valley Noon, Key Chambliss, Barb Chambliss's son, um, just a number, Tarn Udall, Celeste Powers, um, just amazing number of young people that are now out in the world, 30 years later doing incredible things. So there was an incredible experience for me at that stage, just doing that and creating that production. So at the same time, I'd been studying with some wisdom teachers, among them Wallace Black Elk, who is a Lakota elder, Brooke Medicine Eagle, who's a medicine keeper, and Malidoma Somé, who's a West African author and spiritual teacher. And I believe that studying with those people at that time deepened my appreciation for the sacredness of the earth and learning more about protecting the earth and deepening my passion as a hiker as I would explore the wilderness with friends and family. I also, about that time, was invited to guide environmental groups in backcountry land journeys through the Rocky Mountains, the La Salle Mountains in Utah, and in the Colorado National Monument. So this is some of the groundwork that has been percolating beneath the surface in my life. And then a couple of years ago, I presented this story with the Montessori preschool in Salt Lake City, where my granddaughter was going to school. The director there said she could create a whole semester's curriculum off of this story. She had a degree in environmental science, and I thought, wow, this is cool. So the story's not done after 30 years. Surprise, surprise. So I truly am a lover of the earth. I don't know how many of you have gone to my website and read my bio, but I think truthfully, the central theme in my life, besides music, has been my connection with the earth. And I've gardened from Aspen to Glenwood, everywhere I've lived. I explored my mother's garden, hunting for strawberries when I was a little girl. Now I love doing that with my grandkids in my garden. And I've become a master gardener back in the 80s, and a deep appreciation, studied permaculture gardening quite extensively. And so the aspect of working in the garden and getting my hands in the dirt is really a spiritual practice for me. And so connection with the earth is really the theme of my life now, especially during the pandemic. I mean, I grew 60 squash plants last summer and fed people, took food to lift up. And I feel like that's a really high calling. So if my back was in better shape, I'd probably do a lot more of it. So anyway, after doing that presentation at Lydia's preschool, I started contemplating what would it be like if I actually wrote a book, having no experience as a writer. I'm a songwriter for sure. And maybe the gap is not very wide between being a songwriter and a writer. I do not know. But I certainly never would have believed that I could do this. But I thought, I'm one that challenges myself, and I tend to go where I've not gone before. And so I thought, what the heck? Maybe I can put this together, this story. And as I started to think about this, I also met Elisa Onmacht from Light of the Moon, which is a local company that has helped several people publish their books, including Barb Chambliss. and Greg Feinsinger and Will Evans. And after meeting with Alyssa and her daughter and her editor, Kayla, I thought, maybe I can do this. So that is a bit of the backstory. Of course, the inspiration for Magic Mountain is our beautiful, iconic sentinel, Mount Sopris. And I've climbed to the top of that nearly 13,000-foot summit many times, and it's taught me a lot. I've been inspired by visions and songs that I feel like I've received from that mountain, and we have a very special relationship. I lived in the shadow of Magic Mountain for 38 years on Prince Creek when I was Lynn's neighbor. And there's definitely not a day goes by when I'm not giving thanks to that mountain. That mountain is stable. It's not going anywhere. I rely on it for a lot of inspiration. And I've heard many stories about Mount Sopris from Native people and old timers that lived here. And I think that's part of the mystique and the magic of it for me personally. And so I wanted to encourage people as they listen to this, and it's really fun with children. So I want to invite you all to pretend that you are a very young child today. If you can listen with child ears, see with a child's eyes, feel the innocence of a child's heart, and a bit of not knowing, a bit of wonder. And I think that's been the place that I've enjoyed being the most, of just allowing this sense of wonder and innocence to come through. I have to say that Maggie Fricke, who was the illustrator, did an incredible job. It was very much like building a house. You start with nothing, and then you start to create a plan. And what I had done, just if you're interested, because I didn't know how to do this, and I'm kind of a sequential person and a systems thinker, so I have to go step 1, 2, 3. I'm not very good at looking at the overall picture. You kind of got to give me a starting spot, and then I'm good. I didn't really have a starting spot of how to do this. So I created a PowerPoint presentation with sketches that I'd done on the computer. And I don't know if any of you have done that with a Mac, of like your finger does the tracing and the art. Well, it was pathetic as an artist, in terms of that, but it gave a concept. So it was conceptual. And so I did a little PowerPoint presentation, and I put the text in just to kind of see where the page layout was. And then I made a mock-up, a little book with a rubber band and some paper that I folded over, and I started to envision. And I know you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys are all people that envision and hold vision and for manifestation. And I began to work with the vision and holding that vision and seeing it be just perfect, however it was. Kind of like when you're growing a baby, you don't really know what it's going to look like, but you're holding the vision that everything's going to go well and this baby's going to come out. Well, here's the baby. Maggie did a really good job. We still haven't met because of the pandemic, but we've communicated really well. She listens, which is the key, and she's a beautiful artist. Beautiful artist. So I feel like she's done a really good job translating what was in my mind to page. So having that said, would you like to hear the story? Okay, so this is called A Song and a Story of Magic Mountain. I actually hired a trademark attorney to make this happen because there are other Magic Mountain things in the world. There's a book, Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, that was written in the 50s, I believe. And there's a Magic Mountain amusement park. And there's something, a Magic Mountain thing over in Golden. So I hired a trademark attorney and actually bought 3 trademarks for the book, hardback, softback, ebook eventually, hopefully a Spanish version, the workbook, and the school curriculum, which is for homeschooling parents or teachers that go with this book for art and music and outdoor ed. There also will be Magic Mountain, a collaborative musical. There will also be puzzles and a board game for different ages and learning styles. And what this all encapsulates is 40 years of my teaching experience, all my trainings, all the things that I have had come across my path as an educator and a musician. So I really feel, and Ruby, thank you, Ruby. Ruby gave me a beautiful reading last fall because I said, should I do this? I'm not sure. I've chased after a lot of rainbows. And she said, don't do this before December 21st. Don't even try. But once December 21st hits, you're going to have, and Ruby, I could be mistaken, but what I remember you saying, 4 planets are going to go direct in the house of creativity and communication. And once those go direct, you will not be able to stop this. This is what you came in to do. This is your legacy. So I thank you for your guidance, Ruby. I really appreciate it. So you've been a part of this journey too, in getting the fuel to get this rocket ship launched. Okay. So this is a song and a story of Magic Mountain. This is dedicated for my grandchildren, Veda, Lydia, and Mason. And this little critter down here is an ouzel, and he's going to be a guide along the way. And there's a story in the back about the ouzel, which I will share at the end of the book. The ouzel is a very important indicator species in our ecosystem. So this is the first title page. And there's magic. Once upon a time, in one of the most beautiful parts of the world, there was a very special mountain. This was not your average mountain. No, it was very tall, very big, and very beautiful. And it was magical. Do you know why this was a magic mountain? Because this mountain was very different from all other mountains. This mountain could talk. I hope you can see this. It's a really beautiful scene. Long, long ago, before cars or airplanes or video games, everyone lived peacefully beneath the shadow of Magic Mountain. Elk, deer, mountain lions, bighorn sheep, bears, and rabbits, all the animals would roam freely. Trees covered the lush green mountainsides, and fish swam deep in the icy blue, crystal clear waters of high alpine lakes. The air was filled with the sweet songs of birds. When they migrated south for the winter, skies would darken for days with millions of birds. Life was in balance here. There was a peaceful harmony among all things. Do you know why? The people that lived in the village beneath Magic Mountain were very special people, and they had a special way of listening. They would journey up to Magic Mountain, who they called Magic, and sit for days listening to his great stories. Magic loved to tell his stories. He was very wise. He had seen many things, and he knew the secrets of the earth. He knew this was sacred ground. Life was simple. These stories were told to many generations. Night times were filled with families and friends telling great stories around glowing campfires. You see, they had no TVs back then. Magic was so happy to be telling his stories, but as time passed, people moved away. Towns were built nearby, and animals began to disappear. Soon, no one came to see Magic Mountain. He became sad and lonely because he thought no one cared anymore about his stories. So he stopped talking and went to sleep. As years passed, things changed in the valley of Magic Mountain. Many trees had fallen in the winter from destructive avalanches or were cut for new homes or for firewood for people settling there. Roads were built right on the slopes of Magic himself. Since most of the trees were gone, the birds that once filled the air with their sweet song were gone too. The streams that once were home to many fish were now almost empty from all of the fishermen camping nearby, and the riverbanks were littered with trash. The ouzels, also known as the American dippers, who made their nests nearby, had also disappeared. One beautiful autumn day, a young boy and his sister came to camp with their family in the shadow of Magic Mountain. I love that scene. They had been coming here since they were very small, but this time they could see things look different. They also had a special way of listening. Late one night, after everyone had snuggled warmly in their sleeping bags, the little boy heard a noise. Woo, woo. He thought it sounded like an owl. Hey, wake up, he said to his sister. She sat up quickly, rubbing her eyes. I hear an owl outside. Let's go check it out. They grabbed their flashlights and quietly slipped out of their tent, trying not to wake their parents. They tiptoed gently towards the sound, and in the soft light of the harvest moon, they stopped suddenly and couldn't believe their eyes. Good evening, said the wise old owl, perched high on a gnarly tree branch. Good evening, Mr. Owl, said the little boy. Hello, said the little girl. The owl looked at them curiously, and they looked at the owl. Then the owl asked, do you know the story of Magic Mountain? No, they said in unison. So they sat right under that tree branch and listened to every word the owl spoke of the history of Magic Mountain. The warm autumn night passed quickly. After several hours, they noticed a pink glow in the eastern sky. They realized they should get back to their tents so their parents would not worry. We better be going now, said the boy. Goodbye, said the owl. Thank you for your stories, said the girl. The boy and girl were so excited that they ran all the way back to their campsite. They woke up their mother and father and told them the stories of Magic Mountain and of the wise old owl. Even though their story sounded pretty unbelievable, their mother and father knew their children had a special way of listening. They even remembered when they were young and heard unusual things too. They understood wanting to find the owl and go journey up Magic Mountain. You see, the boy and girl had been hiking with their parents since they were very young, and they knew about being in the wilderness. The boy and girl packed some fruit, cheese, nuts, and water in their backpacks and said goodbye to their parents and began their trek up Magic Mountain. The mountain was very tall and the hike was very difficult. They walked and walked until they could see the mountain peak, where they sat down to rest. After they ate their snack of apples and nuts and cheese and drank some water, the boy looked up at the mountain and hollered, "Oh, great mountain, we have come to hear your stories. Please wake up." But there was nothing but the silence and a few birds pecking at a nearby tree trunk. Then the little girl stood up and called out, "Oh, great mountain, can you hear us? We've come to hear your stories. Please wake up." Now, Magic had been asleep for many, many, many years, and no one had come to try to wake him up. As his eyes opened, there was a deep rumble in the earth. The boy and girl looked at each other and began to run. Then Magic opened his mouth and said, "My friends, it is good to have you here to listen to my stories." He looked around at all that had changed while he was asleep. He saw the trees that had been cut down and could no longer hear the birds singing that once lived in those trees. He saw the roads that had been carved right on his slopes. Things were definitely looking out of balance. He was shocked and sad. "Please sit down, and I will tell you a story," he said. "It looks like people have forgotten my stories." So the boy and girl sat down and listened attentively to every word Magic said. After Magic told them many stories, they thanked him and promised to come back for another visit. Racing down the mountain trail, they could hardly wait to tell their parents and their friends these stories. But they wondered, would anyone else be able to listen and hear these stories? What about you? Can you hear Magic stories? Do you have a special way of listening? So at that point in the book, if you had your books, you would see the text to the words for Magic Mountain. And there's a QR code, amazing technology that there is, that you can scan with your cell phone to take you to the song. So I'm going to sing the song for you now. And I want you, because everybody's on mute, to feel comfortable singing along with me. And your part sounds like this. So this is your part. Tell me, Magic Mountain. Tell me, Magic Mountain. So that's your part. Okay, here's the first verse. Can you tell me, Magic Mountain, how many winters have you seen? How many snowflakes sparkling white fall upon your towering peaks? Can you tell me, Magic Mountain, do you know much more than me? Can you tell me how you got here? Tell me how you came to be. Tell me, Magic Mountain. Tell me, Magic Mountain. Can you tell me, Magic Mountain, how many rainbows have you seen? How many colors, blue and gold, shine upon your towering peaks? Can you tell me, Magic Mountain, do you know much more than me? Can you tell me how you got here? Tell me how you came to me. Okay, here's your part. Sing along with me. Tell me, Magic Mountain. Tell me, Magic Mountain. Can you tell me, Magic Mountain, how many sunsets have you seen? Do you sleep quite well at night? And will you please watch over me? Can you tell me, Magic Mountain, Thank you. So that's your Happy Earth Day song for all the beautiful mountains and everything in our environment. So, how are we doing on time? Wow, this is really perfect. um, I can answer any questions if anyone has them. There is more information because this is really an educational tool. This story is really about creating discussions and conversation with children and to talk about feelings and having them tell their story and things that they notice in their world. In the back, there's a page about Maggie and me. There's a page for resources, just a few little resources that I've listed that are inspiring, and a story about Mount Sopris, a little bit of information about our beautiful sentinel, and then a beautiful story about the American dipper, also known as the ouzel, which is an indicator species that John Muir wrote a whole chapter about in his book. The mountains of California. And we have ouzels in our river. And so if you ever take a walk down to the Crystal, you may just see a little ouzel. And they're a dipper and they go below the water and get their food and they do this funny little dance. And so in Will Evans and I and a bunch of other people, Raleigh Burley, a bunch of other people created an event about the ouzel when they were talking about doing some mitigation in our river, just to draw awareness to the ouzels. Because if the ouzels disappear, that means the river is no longer a very healthy river. So we need to know these things, right? We need to know these things. I have a special thanks back here in the back for all the wonderful people that have helped me, and big shout out to JD Martin, who recorded, who is my engineering guru, who helped with the Magic Mountain song. And then of course the testimonials in the back that wonderful people like Brooke Medicine Eagle wrote, and Debbie Condello from the school where I created this. And then on the back is the story about Magic Mountain. And that it's an adventure for children really of all ages, but it's really geared for pre-K through third grade. That's what it's really geared for, and the book is geared for. And the curriculum can be stretched for farther ages in the workbook. So, but the book itself is probably mostly pre-K through third grade. And you can buy it on Earth Day, April 22nd, through my website. And my goal is to become a #1 Amazon bestseller. And so that people are able to share this message, and the message will get out to the larger community that really wants to know more about a deeper way of working with the earth and developing, cultivating a special way of listening. So